Hello and welcome to today's presentation addressing childhood homelessness here in the Albuquerque area. In today's presentation, we will be addressing some important questions, and one of the first is what needs to change. And the purpose of today's presentation with you, the community leaders of the city of Albuquerque, is to really discuss the causes and effects of childhood homelessness, as well as the outcomes for these children. On our next slide, we will be looking at the current situation. New Mexico is currently ranked 47th for childhood homelessness. Albuquerque has approximately 4,000 children under the age of 6 who are homeless. And this is really a startling number. Considering this is such a critical age for child development, we should really be concerned about this high number of children under the age of 6 living in homelessness. And as I mentioned, childhood homelessness impacts development, education, physical, and mental health. And we will be breaking these down later on in this presentation. But again, I just want to stress this is such a critical age for development. The causes and effects of childhood homelessness include access to affordable housing, extreme poverty, which really we can say those two can go together, single-parent homes, this is primarily affecting children who live in homes with single mothers, and children who live in homes with domestic violence and/or parents with mental health issues. The effects, again, significant impacts on early childhood development. This also impacts the quality of education, and it impacts the physical, emotional, and mental health. Now that I've covered briefly the effects, I want to draw you back to this quote I have here at the bottom that identified 75% of families in need were the result of domestic violence. And this was presented by a local agency. And this seems like a very large number. However, through my research, it was really hard to identify to what extent domestic violence really does have on childhood homelessness. But I don't want to take away from such an important issue. What needs to be done? We need to increase access to affordable housing. We need to take a serious look at poverty in New Mexico. And we also need to look at services for domestic violence. Again, not very solid research on what effects domestic violence has. However, we want to ensure that we are doing the right thing, so we need to take a better look at that. And we also want to ensure that there's access to health care and education. Again, bringing me back to this critical period of childhood development. One of the things that's going to significantly impact that is access to health care and also access to stable education. And if we can mitigate that, we can improve upon these children's childhood development. Our first issue is affordable housing. The New Mexico Early Childhood Community has provided vital information to the current state of poverty for families in our community. Families who earn minimum wage must work 73 hours per week, 52 weeks per year to afford a 2-bedroom apartment. This really speaks volumes to the current situation that families in poverty are in. That's a large amount of time spent away from home and working, and this does not even include other living expenses such as food, utilities, or childcare. Some of the other things I'd like to address within affordable housing really is providing money education courses. I think it would be an essential piece of this would be to educate families who are struggling with money on how to better use their resources. I'd also like to work with agencies and federal grant monies to allocate more money and dedicate that to specifically providing housing before homelessness occurs. I want to get ahead of this. I want to ensure that there's stability before the homelessness actually occurs. We would need to increase the number of affordable homes, and we would also need to increase access to information and shelters for individuals to obtain assistance. And really, this is for individuals who may already be homeless. We also need to look at the qualification standards for housing assistance and make sure they really are meeting up with the needs of families who are in poverty. At the heart of this issue really is the health, nutrition, and education of these children. Many children do not have access to proper health care. Children who are homeless are more likely to be sick, and homeless children do not receive proper nutrition and often go without food. Mental health is impacted, and education is disrupted due to the migratory behavior. Again, bringing us back to this critical age of development and how these things can significantly and negatively impact healthy childhood development. And in terms of mental health, I really want to paint this picture. If we were living in unstable environments where we weren't able to get food or have access to safe shelter, it really would impact our mental health as an adult. Imagine a child who is unsure about their safety and well-being and whether or not they're going to eat and where they're going to sleep, and then couple that with parents who may not be equipped to support the child during this time. And that really brings me to my solutions. I want to provide monthly child wellness clinics. I want to ensure that these children are able to receive some health care to really help prevent these major illnesses. Really want to provide more mental health screenings to help these children get through such a hard time and really ensure that they're getting their needs met. Also providing emergency food benefits and working with schools to stabilize students' placement. So instead of them being migratory, they can stay in the same school. This brings me, our next issue is domestic violence. Again, there's not solid information regarding domestic violence and the effects it has on childhood homelessness. However, it is a serious issue, and I think currently what we need to do is review what's in place, make sure that there is access to proper mental health services, and that we really need to truly assess the impact on families who are victims of domestic violence, their ability to maintain stable employment, housing, etc. Again, this information is very hard to find, and understandably, considering that most victims of domestic violence are in fear of their lives and they're not going to report things frequently, and they may not report them accurately due to this fear. On our next slide is the budget. I want to dedicate $20 million to affordable housing with this requirement for the money education course. Again, I think it would be extremely important to ensure that these families have a better understanding on how to use their resources so that they don't find themselves in positions where they're going without. I want to dedicate $10 million for the well child clinics, and again, this is extremely beneficial considering the number of children who are served in emergency rooms and those services go unpaid, and the cost to the healthcare community because of this. I'd like to dedicate $50,000 for resources to be placed in shelters across the city where individuals who are already homeless or who are in extreme poverty may access. Again, we don't want to assume that these individuals know what to do or where to go, so we want to ensure that that information is available. And then an additional $50,000 for updates. When things change, families need the most current information to be able to obtain the most resources they can. And finally, the benefits. Ultimately, my goal here is to ensure that accessing this critical time of development and ensuring that these kids are in stable, safe, healthy environments, that we're preventing future chronic homelessness as adults. And this would really decrease the need for services, and it would decrease the overall need for monies dedicated to homelessness if we can get ahead of the problem now. The likelihood of chronic homelessness, if children were to stay in these environments, would be very high. So again, improving the health, safety, and nutrition will likely break the cycle, allowing the child to better support themselves in adulthood and decreasing the overall need for services in the future. So with this proposed $30 million, I'd really like to create an environment where we're getting ahead of homelessness and we're stopping it and we're decreasing the overall likelihood in the future. Here at the end, I've included some great sources, sources that I used as well. These are local agencies in the Albuquerque Public Schools They provide a lot of great information about the current situation, and they really paint an accurate picture of what children who are living in homelessness go through. And so these resources are great for everybody to look at and get a really solid idea of the current need. I'd like to thank you all for your time